The steel of the bridge railing burned cold against James Mitchell's palm. 13 minutes until the 11:58 freight train. He could hear it in the distance, a low rumble cutting through the Montana blizzard. In his right hand, a loaded Colt .40 in his left, a photograph creased, stained with snow of a German shepherd named Rex. 3 years of searching, 3 years of dead ends and lies. The wind screamed at 18 below zero. James's prosthetic leg trembled against the guardrail. Just 13 minutes. Then the pain would stop. The guilt would end. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. He ignored it. It vibrated again. His thumb hovered over the screen. One message. Officer Sarah Bennett, Frost Creek Ped. Need to discuss your dog. James's finger froze on the trigger. Your dog. 72 hours earlier. He hadn't known Rex was alive. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. James Mitchell woke at 0500 hours. Always been 23 years since basic training, and his body still obeyed the rhythm. He stared at the water-stained ceiling of the abandoned Miller farmhouse. Counting the cracks, 17. Same as yesterday, same as the day before. The morning light filtered through broken blinds, casting bars across the sleeping bag that served as his bed. A proper bed would cost maybe $300. James had $847.3267 in his bank account, untouched. The VA disability settlement sat there like an accusation, gathering interest he'd never spend. He pulled himself upright, phantom pain shooting through the leg that wasn't there anymore. The prosthetic leaned against the wall. Waiting, James strapped it on with practiced efficiency, same as every morning. 5 minutes to dress, 3 minutes to splash water on his face from the kitchen sink. No mirror. He'd removed it 2 years ago. On the kitchen table, a card table he'd found behind the Walmart, sat a framed photograph. 3 men in desert camouflage. A German shepherd sitting at attention between them. Afghanistan, 2021. James on the left, broad-shouldered and smiling. Corporal David Bennett in the middle, his arm slung around James's shoulders. And Rex, 95 pounds of loyal muscle and intelligent brown eyes, her tongue hanging out in what looked like a grin. Someone had drawn a red X over Rex's face. James had done it himself 6 months ago, drunk on cheap whiskey. He couldn't bring himself to remove the photo entirely, and he couldn't stand looking at her unmarked. The X was a compromise with his guilt. Beside the frame lay 47 pills. Zoloft. Oh, he was supposed to take one daily? He hadn't touched them in 3 weeks? What was the point? The pills couldn't bring back the dead. His morning ritual never varied. Stand before the photograph. Recite the names. Corporal David Bennett, age 29, killed in action, March 15th, 2021. Never just David, always the rank, always the date, as if military precision could somehow organize the chaos of grief. James lived on $43 a week from odd jobs, shoveling driveways, stacking lumber at Morrison's hardware store. The townspeople of Frost Creek paid him in cash and pity. He existed in their peripheral vision, the broken veteran in the broken house on the edge of town. A cautionary tale parents told their enlisting sons. He pulled on his coat, threadbare at the elbows, and looked at the photograph one last time. Rex's eyes seemed to follow him even through the red X. I tried to find you, girl, he whispered to the empty room. God knows I tried. The borrowed truck waited outside, its right tail light still broken. James knew it was broken. Part of him hoped someone would notice. The blizzard hit Highway 89 just after 2 in the afternoon. James squinted through the windshield of the borrowed Ford pickup, watching fat snowflakes swallow the road ahead. The hardware store had closed early because of the weather. Good. He hadn't wanted to go anyway. Hadn't wanted to face another day of sympathetic glances from Mrs. Morrison as she counted out his meager pay. The broken taillight flickered in his rearview mirror. He'd noticed it 3 days ago. Had the money to fix it, chose not to. Some small part of him, the part that still remembered how to hope, wanted someone to pull him over, wanted a reason to talk to another human being, even if that human being was writing him a ticket. Red and blue lights flashed behind him. James's heart kicked against his ribs. He pulled onto the shoulder, hands already visible on the steering wheel. Military training ran deep. So did the fear that came with it, not of the police, but of what his PTSD might make him do if startled. Through the side mirror, he watched a Frost Creek Police Department SUV pull up behind him. K-9 unit. The door said. James's throat tightened. Of course it was K-9. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Officer Sarah Bennett checked her computer screen. Vehicle registered to Walter Henderson, deceased 2 months ago. Suspicious. She reached for her radio, then paused. The blizzard was getting worse. Visibility dropping fast. She'd make this quick. She stepped out into the wind, one hand on her belt, and approached the driver's side. Behind her, in the back of the SUV, Rex began to bark. Not the sharp, alert bark of a working dog noticing a threat. Something else. Something desperate. Sarah paused, glancing back. Rex never acted like this. In 2 years of partnership, the German Shepherd had been nothing but professional, calm, controlled. Now she was throwing herself against the barrier separating the back compartment from the front seats, claws scraping metal, a howl building in her throat that made Sarah's skin prickle. "Rex, quiet," Sarah commanded. Rex ignored her. First time ever. James stepped out of the truck, hands raised. "Evening. Officer, I know the taillight's out. The wind shifted. Rex's howling intensified to something primal, something that didn't sound like it came from a dog at all. It sounded like grief, like recognition, like a mother finding a lost child. Sarah's hand moved toward her weapon. "Sir, stay by your vehicle." But James wasn't looking at Sarah. He was looking past her at the police SUV, at the shadow throwing itself against the window. His face had gone white. Rex's paws found the barrier latch, a trick she'd learned in military service, a skill Sarah didn't know she possessed. The barrier held, but barely. The German Shepherd's brown eyes were locked on James through the window, wild and desperate and utterly certain. "What's wrong with your dog?" James's voice cracked. Sarah's training screamed at her to call for backup, to secure the situation, to follow protocol. But something in the way the man stood, shoulders back despite obvious pain, hands steady despite clear emotion, spoke to something deeper than training. "I don't know," she admitted. "She's never done this before." The decision took 3 seconds. Sarah returned to her vehicle and opened the barrier. Just a crack, just enough to calm Rex down. Rex exploded through the gap. 95 pounds of German Shepherd launched from the SUV like a missile. Sarah's hand went to her weapon. "Rex, halt!" Rex didn't halt. Rex had stopped being Officer Bennett's K-9 partner. and become something else entirely, something that had been waiting 3 years for this moment. James dropped to his knees, instinct, muscle memory, the way he'd done 1,000 times in the Afghan desert when Rex would return from a patrol. Rex crashed into him, not attacking, embracing. The big dog's entire body shook as she pressed against James's chest, whimpering, licking his face, making sounds Sarah had never heard from her. Her tail wasn't wagging, it was trembling. Her eyes leaked tears. Dogs can cry. Most people don't know that. But when a dog's heart breaks or heals, their eyes water just like human eyes. James's hands moved without thought, checking Rex's body, old habits, looking for injuries. His fingers found the scar on her right shoulder, a puckered line of fur where a bullet had grazed her 3 years ago. March 15th, 2021. The day David Bennett died. The day James lost his leg. The day he'd been evacuated on a helicopter, screaming for them to bring his dog, watching Rex grow smaller and smaller as they lifted into the sky. Rex! His voice broke on the name. Oh, God, Rex! The German shepherd pressed her head under his chin, the way she used to do when they slept in the same tent, when mortars fell in the distance, when James would wake, gasping from nightmares. Sarah stood frozen, her hand still on her weapon, watching her canine partner recognize a man she'd never mentioned, had never shown any connection to. "How?" Sarah whispered. "Do you know my dog?" Sarah gave them 5 minutes. 5 minutes of watching a broken man hold a dog who refused to let him go, while snow accumulated on both their shoulders and the temperature dropped toward dangerous. 5 minutes of Rex pressing against James Mitchell like she was trying to crawl inside his skin, whimpering in a way that made Sarah's chest ache. "Sir," she finally said, voice harder than she felt. "I need an explanation now." James couldn't speak at first. His face was buried in Rex's fur, shoulders shaking. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red. "She was my partner? Afghanistan? 2018 to 2020? That's impossible. Rex transferred to our unit from—" Sarah stopped. From where she'd never actually been told. The paperwork had said federal transfer, former handler classified, dog cleared for civilian police work. She'd never questioned it. March 15th, 2021. James said, his voice steadying. "Helmand Province. Our squad was on patrol. Rex detected an IED. Saved 6 lives that day." He touched the scar on Rex's shoulder. "She got hit by shrapnel. I got hit worse. They medevaced me out. I woke up in Germany. 3 days later, 1 leg short, asking about my dog. They told me she'd been reassigned when I got stateside. I tried to find her, filed requests, made calls. They said she'd been transferred due to psychological instability. Wouldn't tell me where." Sarah's mind raced. 2 years she'd worked with Rex. 2 years of a dog who performed flawlessly but never quite bonded, who sat at attention during downtime, watching the door like she was waiting for someone, who sometimes whimpered in her sleep, a sound Sarah had attributed to dreams. "That doesn't make sense. If you were her handler, there are protocols, reunification programs. You should have—" "I know what I should have gotten," James said quietly. "I know what I was promised. I was told the paperwork was lost, that she'd been reassigned to classified operations. Eventually, I stopped asking, figured she'd moved on, that maybe she was better off without me." Rex made a sound like a sob and pressed harder against him. "I need you to follow me to the station," Sarah said. "We need to sort this out officially." Am I under arrest? No. But we're going to figure out what the hell happened. At Frost Creek Police Department, Sarah led James to an interview room and left Rex with him. The dog wouldn't leave his side anyway. Sarah went to records, pulled Rex's file, and spread it across her desk. Transfer date, January 14th, 20, Origin Federal K-9 Reassignment Program. Former handler. Classified. Medical evaluation. Cleared for duty. Psychological assessment. Stable. Nothing about James Mitchell. Nothing about Afghanistan. Nothing that made sense, given what she'd just witnessed. Sarah opened her desk drawer and pulled out a photograph she kept there. Her brother, David Bennett, in desert camouflage, aged 29 when he died, killed in action. March 5th, 2021. Helmand Province. Same day, same place. Her hands shook as she pulled David's personnel file from her locked cabinet. Inside, tucked between commendation letters, were photographs he'd sent home. Sarah flipped through them with growing dread. There. Fifth photo down, David, with his arm around another soldier, both of them grinning, exhausted, alive. A German shepherd sat between them. The other soldier was James Mitchell. Sarah's vision blurred. She'd been looking for this man for 3 years. The man who'd been there when David died. The man who'd survived when her brother hadn't. She'd requested the transfer to Frost Creek, David's hometown, specifically to find James Mitchell, to ask him what happened that day, to understand why her brother came home in a box while James Mitchell walked away. Except he hadn't walked away. He'd lost a leg, and judging by the hollow look in his eyes, he'd lost much more than that. She'd found James 6 months ago, living in that abandoned farmhouse like a ghost. She'd watched him from a distance, trying to work up the courage to confront him. And when she couldn't, she'd done the next best thing. Today's traffic stop hadn't been random. She'd been following him, waiting for an excuse. She'd engineered this mating. She just hadn't known Rex would be the bridge between them. Sarah walked back to the interview room, David's photo in hand. James looked up when she entered. Rex was lying across his feet. "David Bennett," Sarah said, placing the photo on the table, "was my brother." James went absolutely still. His eyes dropped to the photograph, and something in his face crumbled. "David," he whispered, "you're Sarah. He talked about you all the time. His little sister, the one who wanted to be a cop." "Tell me what happened that day." James closed his eyes. "We were on patrol. Rex detected the first ID. We called it in, started to pull back. Then David spotted something. 50 meters east, tripwire. There were 2 devices. Rex had found the decoy. David ran toward the squad to warn them. I went after him. He touched his left leg. I wasn't fast enough. The blast threw all of us. David pushed Private Morrison out of the way, saved his life. The shrapnel hit David instead." "And you?" "I tried to get to him. Rex tried to shield me. We both went down. I remember the helicopter. Remember screaming for them to get David first. They said he was already gone. I remember Rex's blood mixing with mine in the sand. I promised her I'd find her when we got home. I promised." Tears ran down his face. "Your brother was the best man I ever knew, and I let him die." Sarah's anger, carried for 3 years, deflated like a punctured tire. She'd wanted someone to blame, wanted someone to carry the weight she'd been carrying alone. But looking at James Mitchell, this broken man who'd been living in a condemned house, who'd tried to find his dog and been lied to. She saw the truth. He blamed himself more than she ever could. "I've been watching you," Sarah admitted. "For 6 months. I wanted answers. I wanted—" She stopped. "I don't know what I wanted." "To blame me," James said. "You should. I blame me, too." Rex lifted her head and looked at Sarah, then back at James. The dog's intelligence was unsettling sometimes, like she understood every word. "I need to make some calls," Sarah said. "Something's wrong here. You should have been notified about Rex. Someone lied to you. Does it matter now I found her?" "It matters. Because if someone falsified records to keep a veteran from his service dog, they need to answer for it." Sarah pulled out her phone and called the station chief. Captain Robert Caldwell answered on the second ring. "Bennett, what's the situation?" "Sir, I need you to come to the station. We have a situation with Rex's transfer paperwork." A pause. Too long. "What kind of situation?" "Her former handler is here, James Mitchell. He says he was never notified of her transfer." Another pause. When Caldwell spoke again, his voice had changed, harder. "I'll be right there. Don't let Mitchell leave." The line went dead. Sarah looked at James. "Something's very wrong here." Captain Robert Caldwell arrived at the station within 15 minutes. Too fast, Sarah thought, for someone who lived on the other side of town. Too eager. When he walked into the bullpen, his eyes found James immediately, and something flickered across his face. Recognition and fear. "Mitchell," Caldwell said, voice carefully neutral. "It's been a long time." James stood slowly, Rex rising with him. "Caldwell, you were supply sergeant, Afghanistan, 2020 to 21. "That's right." Caldwell turned to Sarah. "Officer Bennett, can I speak with you privately?" "No," Sarah said. "Whatever you need to say, you can say it in front of Mr. Mitchell. He has a right to know why he was never notified about Rex's transfer." Caldwell's jaw tightened. "That information is classified. National security protocols." "National security." James's voice rose. "She's a retired K-9, not a nuclear weapon. The circumstances of her retirement involved sensitive operations. I can't discuss it." Deputy Stan Warner, 68 years old and 6 days from retirement, emerged from the records room carrying a file box. Stan had been with the department for 43 years. He'd seen 5 police chiefs come and go. He didn't scare easily, and he didn't lie. "Captain," Stan said, setting the box on Sarah's desk. "I processed Rex's transfer paperwork back in January 20. Something's been bothering me about it since Officer Bennett brought this up, so I pulled the originals from archives." Caldwell's face went pale. "Deputy Warner, this isn't—" "The transfer document lists the former handler as J. Mitchell, status KIA. Stan looked at James. "Killed in action, too. But you're standing right here, son, very much alive." Sarah grabbed the document. There it was, in black and white. Handler status deceased. Rex transferred to civilian program under standard protocols for dogs whose handlers had died in service. "Someone," Sarah said slowly, "falsified this document. Someone reported James Mitchell as dead when he was alive and recovering in a VA hospital." James stared at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. "You told them I was dead. You told them I was dead so could they'd reassign her." "I didn't." Caldwell started. "Who signed this transfer?" Sarah interrupted. Stan pointed to the signature line. "Captain Robert Caldwell, authorizing officer." The room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and Rex's low growl. The German shepherd was staring at Caldwell with an intensity that made the hair on Sarah's neck stand up. "You son of a bitch," James whispered. You knew I was looking for her. I called the base 17 times, sent 14 emails, filed 6 formal requests, and you knew where she was the whole time." Caldwell backed toward the door. "You don't understand. There were circumstances. Medical evaluations indicated you were psychologically unfit." "Show me the evaluations." "They're classified." "Bullshit." James stepped forward. Rex moved with him, teeth bared. "Show me one piece of paper, one legitimate document that says I was unfit to care for my own dog." Stan Warner was already back in the records room. He returned with another file. "Medical clearance for canine reunification, required for all veterans seeking to reclaim their service dogs." He opened it. James Mitchell, evaluated by VA psychologist Dr. Ellen Hartley, March 20 recommendation handler. Unsuitable for canine care due to severe PTSD and suicidal ideation. James snatched the document. "I never saw Dr. Hartley. My VA psychologist was Dr. Raymond Morrison. I have every appointment record, every prescription. I can prove this is fake." Sarah's phone was already out, calling the VA hospital in Helena. 3 minutes of hold music, then a receptionist. "Yes, I need to verify employment for a Dr. Ellen Hartley, Psychiatry Department, 22. A pause. Typing. "I'm sorry. We have no record of a Dr. Ellen Hartley ever being employed here." Sarah's eyes locked on Caldwell. "The doctor doesn't exist. You created a fake psychological evaluation to prevent James from reclaiming his dog. Why?" Caldwell's hand moved to the door handle. "I want my lawyer." "You're not under arrest," Sarah said, "yet, but you're going to sit down and explain what the hell happened to Rex between March 2022 and January 23. Because, according to these records, she disappeared for 10 months, and I want to know where she was." Stan Warner cleared his throat. "Captain, I've been doing some digging. Maybe you should tell them about Biotech Solutions before they find out on their own." Caldwell's face went from pale to gray. He sat down heavily in the nearest chair, suddenly looking every one of his 55 years. "I need immunity." "You need to start talking," Sarah said. "Now." Caldwell's hands shook as he pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts, and turned the screen toward them. A text message from 18 months ago. "Wire transfer confirmed, 5s per unit. Next delivery scheduled for..." He pulled the phone back. There was a program, Private Research, Biotech Solutions. They had DoD contracts to study stress responses in working dogs, PTSD indicators, pharmaceutical trials for anti-anxiety medications. They needed subjects. James's voice was deadly quiet. "You sold military dogs to a research facility? Not sold, transferred, temporarily, for the greater good. The research was supposed to help veterans. How many? What? How many dogs did you send there?" Caldwell wouldn't meet his eyes. 47 over 3 years. Sarah felt sick. "And you got paid $5,000 per dog. I have a son." Caldwell's voice cracked. "Marcus. He's 17. Severe autism. Nonverbal. The care costs $200,000 a year. Insurance wouldn't cover it. My wife left. I was drowning in debt. When Vance approached me..." "Vance." Sarah interrupted. "Dr. Richard Vance. He runs the veterinary clinic. on Pine Street. He owned Biotech Solutions before he dissolved the company last year. Sarah's blood ran bout. The clinic where I take Rex for her checkups. Caldwell nodded miserably. Vance needed military-trained dogs, stable temperaments, known medical histories. I provided them. Most of the dog's handlers were dead or untraceable. But Mitchell? He looked at James. You kept calling and kept asking. Wouldn't let it go. So I flagged you as psychologically unfit, created the paperwork that would stop your requests, sent Rex to Biotech like the others. What did they do to her? James's voice was raw. Stress studies to go to sleep deprivation or isolation. Testing anti-anxiety compounds. Vance said it was humane. Said the dogs weren't hurt. Just monitored. Rex was trembling against James's leg. He knelt beside her, hands gentle on her head, and looked at her properly for the first time. The scars he'd attributed to combat were in wrong places. Too neat, too clinical. The slight limp in her right hind leg, the way she flinched when people moved too quickly. How long was she there? 9 months. May 22 to February 23. 9 months of hell. 9 months, while James had been trying to find her, while he'd been told she was dead or unreachable or better off without him. 9 months, while she'd been locked in a research facility, subjected to experiments, waiting for him to save her. He hadn't saved her. He'd failed her again. I want to see the facility, Sarah said. It's closed. Vance shut it down when a federal audit was announced. He dissolved Biotech, destroyed most of the records, and transferred the remaining dogs into civilian programs. Rex was one of the last. Why? James asked. Why did you send her to the police department here? Why not somewhere else? Caldwell's laugh was bitter. Because Rex recognized me. The last time I visited the facility, she saw me and went crazy, attacked the cage door, drew blood from a technician trying to restrain her. Vance wanted her euthanized, said she was too aggressive, too unstable. I couldn't. He stopped. I couldn't let that happen. So I pulled strings, got her transferred here to Frost Creek, where I could keep an eye on her, make sure she was safe. Safe? James's voice was soft, dangerous. You tortured her for 9 months, and then patted yourself on the back for not killing her. I saved her life. You destroyed it. James surged to his feet. Stan Warner grabbed his arm, held him back. She trusted you. She was a soldier. She served, and you sold her like livestock. Sarah's mind was racing through implications. If Biotech dissolved last year, why does Vance still have access to records? Why does he still have the facility? Caldwell said nothing. Sarah called Deputy Mike Torres. Mike, I need you to run property records, the veterinary clinic on Pine Street. I want to know who owns it. 2 minutes later, Mike called back. Building's owned by a shell corporation. Cascade Holdings, LLC. Owner is listed as... This is weird. It's a partnership. 60% Richard Vance, 40% Robert Caldwell. Sarah hung up and looked at Caldwell with disgust. You're still in business with him. You're still profiting. The clinic is legitimate. Is it, or is there still a research facility in the back? Still dogs locked in cages while you collect checks? Caldwell stood. I'm done talking. I want my lawyer. And you? He pointed at James. Stay away from that clinic. Stay away from Vance, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing. He walked out. Sarah James, Stan, and Rex sat in stunned silence. Finally, Stan spoke. "I'm retiring Friday. Been thinking about it for months. But after this," he shook his head, "I'm done. And before I go, I'm testifying to everything I've seen, everything I've found. I'll back you both up." "Thank you," Sarah said. Stan looked at James. "Son, I'm sorry. We should have done better by you, by all of you who served." After Stan left, Sarah turned to James. "We need to see that clinic tonight. Caldwell will have warned Vance by now. I know, but Rex needs a full medical examination by someone we trust. Dr. Patricia Morgan in Great Falls. She's a specialist in military canines. She'll see what Vance might have missed or hidden." And on the way, Sarah pulled out her phone and scrolled to a contact. "I'm calling someone, Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb. He ran the K-9 reassignment program. If anyone knows the full scope of what Caldwell and Vance did, it's him." James looked down at Rex, who was pressed against his leg, shaking slightly. "I should have found you sooner," he whispered to her. "I should have kept looking." Rex licked his hand. Sarah's voice was firm. "You found her now, and we're going to make sure everyone who hurt her pays for it." Outside, the blizzard had intensified. The temperature was dropping toward 20 below, but inside the police station, a different kind of storm was building, one that would shake Frost Creek to its foundations and force 3 people and 1 German shepherd to confront the truth about loyalty, betrayal, and how far someone would go to protect the ones they loved, even if it meant destroying everything else in the process. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb lived 43 miles outside Frost Creek, on a ranch that sat against the Montana wilderness like a postcard. Sarah made the call from her truck. James in the passenger seat, Rex stretched across both their laps in a way that violated every police regulation but felt absolutely right. Webb answered on the 3rd ring. "This is Webb." "Colonel Webb, this is Officer Sarah Bennett, Frost Creek, Peyton. I need to ask you about the K-9 reassignment program you ran from Twitty-Tot to 22. A long silence. Then, "What's this about?" "It's about a German shepherd named Rex and a handler named James Mitchell, who was told his dog was dead." Another silence, longer this time. "Come to the ranch tonight. I'll tell you everything I know." The ranch house was sprawling, expensive, the kind of place that shouldn't be affordable on a military pension. James noticed it immediately. So did Sarah. Webb met them at the door, a distinguished man of 62, with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He looked at Rex, and something in his face softened. "She's beautiful." "How old?" "8, Sarah said. "You processed her transfer in January 23. "Come inside." Webb's office was lined with photographs, dozens of German shepherds, Belgian Malinois, Labrador retrievers, all military K-9s, all looking at the camera with the same intelligent, loyal eyes. "These are the dogs I processed," Webb said quietly. "Every single one. I keep their photos because—" He stopped. "Because some of them deserve better than what they got." James's hands clenched into fists. "You knew. You knew what was happening?" "I suspected. I could never prove it." Webb pulled a file from his desk. "Rex, handler James Mitchell. Status on my paperwork. Handler deceased. Medical evaluation dog cleared for civilian transfer." He looked up. "But you're not dead, Mr. Mitchell." "Captain Robert Caldwell falsified the documents." Webb's jaw tightened. Caldwell. I had my suspicions about him. Dogs would come through my program with paperwork that seemed too clean, too convenient, handlers who were untraceable or listed as KIA when I couldn't find death certificates. I reported my concerns to my commanding officer. He told me to focus on my job and stop asking questions. So you did nothing? James said, voice flat. I retired, Webb corrected, because I couldn't be part of it anymore. But before I left, I copied every file that came across my desk, including Rex's. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. 47 dogs processed through unusual channels between 20 and 20, all with Caldwell's signature, all transferred to civilian programs after gaps in their service records. Sarah leaned forward. Gaps. Months where the dogs disappeared, no duty assignments, no medical records, nothing. Then they'd reappear, get cleared for transfer, and vanish into civilian programs. Webb spread papers across his desk. Rex disappeared for 9 months, May 22 to February 20. During that time, according to official records, she didn't exist. She was at Biotech Solutions, Sarah said. A private research facility? Caldwell was selling military dogs for pharmaceutical testing? Webb closed his eyes. God help us. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. How does a retired lieutenant colonel afford a ranch like this? James asked, the accusation clear in his voice. Webb met his gaze steadily. My wife's family money. Her father owned half the copper mines in Montana. When he died, she inherited everything. This ranch, the land, enough money that I'll never have to work again, which is why I can help you now without worrying about my pension or my reputation. He paused. I failed those dogs once by not fighting harder. I won't fail them again. He opened his laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet. I've been tracking the 47 dogs. 23 are alive and in civilian homes. I verified their locations. 18 died during their service or shortly after transfer. The causes of death in the records are vague. Training accidents, aggressive behavior, requiring euthanasia, sudden illness. But the timing is suspicious. Most died within weeks of their mysterious gaps. Died during testing, James said. His hand was stroking Rex's head, fingers trembling. That's my theory. And 6 dogs are completely unaccounted for. They entered the system and never came out. No transfer records, no death certificates, just gone. Sarah felt sick. We need to shut down Vance's operation. What operation? According to state records, Biotech Solutions dissolved in January 20. The facility was supposed to be dismantled. Caldwell still owns 40% of Vance's veterinary clinic, Shell Corporation. But we traced it. Webb's eyes sharpened. Then they're still working together, still profiting. He turned to his laptop and opened another file. There's something else, something I discovered after I retired and had time to really dig into the financials. The payments to Caldwell weren't just $5,000 per dog. What do you mean? That was the base rate. But certain those dogs with specific bloodlines, specific training, specific genetic markers, those went for more, much more. He pulled up a document. Rex's bloodline is elite. Her great-grandfather was worth $50,000 on the military breeding market. Her training records show exceptional aptitude. Her genetics are perfect for breeding. The implications hit Sarah like a punch. They bred her. Webb nodded slowly. If they were running a full operation, they wouldn't waste a dog like Rex. They'd breed her and sell the puppies. Military-grade German Shepherd puppies from proven bloodlines can go for $10,000 to $15,000 each. James made a sound like he'd been shot. Rex lifted her head, whimpered, licked his face. He buried his face in her fur. "We need to examine her," Sarah said. "Tonight. Can you give us a contact? Someone who can do a full medical workup. Dr. Patricia Morgan in Great Falls. She's the best. Former military veterinarian, specializes in canines. She knows what to look for." Webb wrote down a number. "Tell her I sent you. She'll see you immediately." They drove to Great Falls through the blizzard. 90 miles of white-knuckle highway with Rex sleeping fitfully in the back seat. James kept turning around to check on her, his face a mask of barely controlled rage and grief. "If they hurt her," he said quietly, "if they did what Webb thinks they did, I don't know what I'll do." "We'll do it together," Sarah said. "Whatever needs to be done." To Patricia Morgan's clinic was small but immaculate. She met them at the door despite the late hour, a woman of 45 with kind eyes and capable hands. She took one look at Rex and gestured them inside. "On the examination table, please." The exam took 40 minutes. Rex was patient, trusting, allowing De Morgan to probe and palpate and listen. But when the ultrasound machine came out, she tensed. James held her head, whispering reassurances. De Morgan moved the ultrasound wand across Rex's abdomen. Her expression didn't change, but her hands stilled. "Oh, no." "What is it?" Sarah demanded. Dr. Morgan turned the screen toward them. Even without medical training, the images were clear. Small shapes. Puppies. 6 of them. "She's pregnant," Dr. Morgan said quietly. "Approximately 58 days. Normal gestation for dogs is 63 days. She's due to give birth within the week." James's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor. "No, no. They didn't. They couldn't." "There's more," Dr. Morgan said, and her voice was gentle but firm. "The internal scarring from previous trauma is severe. I'm seeing evidence of forced breeding physical markers that suggest she was restrained during mating. And there's scar tissue in her uterus, consistent with previous pregnancies or miscarriages." Sarah's vision blurred with rage. "How many times?" "At least once before, maybe twice. The scarring is extensive. And because of that scarring, this pregnancy is dangerous. Very dangerous. Without intervention, the birth could kill her." James looked up from the floor, his face devastated. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying she needs a C-section, but she's weak, malnourished, despite what appears to be adequate recent feeding. Blood work shows signs of long-term stress. Her immune system is compromised. Surgery is risky." "What are the odds?" Dr. Morgan hesitated. "If we do the C-section now, while she's relatively stable, 60% chance of survival. If we wait for natural labor, 20%, maybe less." "And the puppies?" "In a C-section, probably 4 will survive. Maybe all 6 if we're lucky. In natural labor, assuming Rex survives, maybe 2 puppies make it." James pulled himself to his feet using the examination table. He looked at Rex, who was watching him with those intelligent brown eyes, trusting him and believing he would make the right choice. "What would she want?" he asked. "James." "No. Seriously. If she could decide, what would she choose? Sarah stepped closer. She's a soldier too. She'd want to fight. Dr. Morgan's voice was soft. Don't understand pregnancy intellectually, but maternal instinct is powerful, especially in German shepherds. She'll try to protect those puppies, even if it kills her. So James made his decision. We wait. Give her 48 hours to get stronger. Fluids, nutrients, whatever she needs. Then we do the surgery. And Rex makes that choice, knowing we did everything to give her the best chance. 48 hours is cutting it close, Dick Morgan warned. Then we have 48 hours to make sure she's ready. They admitted Rex to the clinic's overnight facility. Dr. Morgan started IV fluids, antibiotics, nutritional supplements. James refused to leave. Sarah called the station, told them she was taking emergency family leave. Stan Warner, bless him, approved it without questions. At midnight, James sat beside Rex's kennel, his hand through the bars, touching her fur. Sarah brought coffee from the machine down the hall. "We should contact Sheriff Bradley," Sarah said. "Tell him everything. Get an official investigation started." "Will he believe us? Stan Warner will back us up. Webb will testify. We have enough to at least get a warrant for Vance's clinic." James nodded slowly. "And then what? We find more dogs." "More evidence. Caldwell goes to prison and his autistic son loses his father. That's not on you. Isn't it? He did this because he was desperate, because the system failed his kid. I understand desperation. I understand doing terrible things because you can't see another way." Sarah knelt beside him. "You understand it, but you didn't do it. You kept looking for Rex. You didn't give up. You didn't hurt anyone else to ease your own pain." "I came close." James's voice was barely a whisper. "The night before you pulled me over, I was on Sullivan Bridge, gun loaded, train coming. If you hadn't sent that text message—" Sarah's hand found his. "But I did, and you're here. And Rex is alive, and we're going to fight for her." In the kennel, Rex's breathing was steady. The IV dripped slowly. Outside, the blizzard raged. Inside, outside, 3 people and 1 German shepherd prepared for a battle that would determine not just their futures, but their ability to live with themselves when it was over. The surgery was scheduled for December 24th at midnight. 48 hours of intensive care had strengthened Rex, but not enough. Dr. Morgan's face was grim as she prepped the operating room. "Her vitals are better, but still weak. Blood pressure is low, heart rate irregular." "Well, I'm going to be honest with you, James. This is going to be touch and go." James nodded, his hand never leaving Rex's head. She was sedated but still aware, her eyes following his face. "You're the strongest thing I've ever known," he whispered to her. "You saved my life twice. Let me save yours." Sarah stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder. In the past 2 days, something had shifted between them. Shared purpose, shared grief, understanding that they were both David's family, both carrying pieces of him forward. "We should start," De Morgan said gently. They wheeled Rex into surgery. James and Sarah waited outside the door, neither speaking. Down the hall, in the clinic's office, Sheriff Tom Bradley was coordinating with federal agents. Webb's testimony had opened floodgates. The FBI was now involved, investigating potential fraud, animal abuse, and conspiracy charges against Caldwell and Vance. Caldwell had been arrested that morning. The look on his face when the federal agents arrived had been a mixture of resignation and relief, like he'd been waiting for this moment for years. Vance had disappeared. His clinic was empty, records gone, the back room stripped clean. But they'd find him. People like Vance always left traces. 30 minutes into surgery, Dr. Morgan emerged, her face pale. "We have a problem." James was on his feet immediately. "What?" "Internal bleeding, more severe than the ultrasound showed. The scarring created adhesions that tore when I made the first incision. I've got it under control, but she's losing blood fast. I need to transfuse." "Do it." "I don't have her blood type on hand. I need a donor. Another German Shepherd, preferably one who's donated before." De Morgan looked at Sarah. "Do you know anyone in the area?" Sarah's mind raced. Then she remembered. "The K-9 unit in Helena, Officer Marcus Chen has a German Shepherd. Trained blood donor. I'll call him." 40 minutes later, a police cruiser screamed into the parking lot. Officer Chen emerged with his dog, Titan, a massive German Shepherd who looked like he could take down a bear. "Where do you need him?" Dr. Morgan led Titan into the surgical suite. James watched through the observation window as they drew blood from the big dog. Transferred it to Rex. On the table, Rex's chest barely moved. "Come on," James whispered. "Come on, girl. Fight." An hour passed, then 2. Sarah brought coffee that went cold in their hands. Outside, the blizzard that had raged for 3 days finally broke. Stars appeared through thinning clouds. At 2:04 a.m., Dr. Morgan emerged. Her scrubs were covered in blood. Her face was exhausted but triumphant. "She's alive. 4 puppies delivered. 2 males, 2 females, all breathing." James couldn't speak. Sarah wrapped her arms around him as he shook, but De Morgan continued, and James's heart stopped. "She's critical. The bleeding was severe. We had to remove part of her uterus. She'll never be able to have puppies again. But that's probably a blessing given the scarring. Right now she's in recovery, sedated, on oxygen. The next 24 hours will determine if she makes it. Can I see her?" 5 minutes. She needs rest. Yet Rex lay on the surgical table, intubated, her abdomen shaved and stitched. She looked so small, so vulnerable. James touched her paw gently. "You did it," he said. "You fought. Now rest. I'm not going anywhere." In the next room, 4 tiny puppies squirmed in an incubator. Dr. Morgan was bottle feeding the smallest one, a female who fit in her palm. "They're premature but healthy. This little girl is weak, though touch and go, like her mother." James looked at the tiny puppy, her eyes still sealed shut, her body trembling. She looked exactly like Rex. Same coloring, same determined set to her jaw even at 2 hours old. "Hope," he said. "Her name is Hope." At 3:50 a.m., Rex's heart stopped. The monitors screamed. De Morgan shouted for her assistant. They rushed Rex back into surgery, started CPR, injected epinephrine directly into her heart. James watched through the window, unable to breathe, unable to think, unable to do anything but pray to a God he'd stopped believing in 3 years ago. 1 minute of CP, 2, 3. Dr. Morgan looked up at the clock. 4 minutes. The chances of revival dropped with each passing second. "Come on, Rex," Dr. Morgan muttered, continuing compressions. "Come on, soldier. Your puppies need you. Your handler needs you. Don't you dare give up now." 5 minutes. The assistant looked at Dr. Morgan. "Doctor, maybe we should—" "No. Keep going. 6 minutes." Sarah was crying beside James, her hand clutched in his, both of them helpless. 7 minutes. In the nursery, the tiny puppy named Hope began to cry. A weak, mewling sound, as if calling for her mother. 8 minutes. De Morgan's arms were shaking from exhaustion, but she didn't stop, wouldn't stop. 9 minutes. The monitor flatlined, the piercing tone of a heart that would never beat again. "Doctor," the assistant said gently, "she's gone." De Morgan's hands stilled on Rex's chest. She looked at the clock. 3:24 a.m., December 24th, Christmas Eve. She stepped back from the table, pulled off her gloves, and turned to face the observation window, to face James, whose world had just ended for the second time in 3 years. But then a sound, faint, almost imperceptible. The assistant gasped. "Doctor, on the monitor." A blip, then another, then a weak, irregular rhythm. Rex's heart was beating again. Rex survived the night, but barely. For 3 days she lay in the ICU, breathing through a tube, fed through an IV, hovering in that gray space between life and death. James never left her side. Sarah brought him food he didn't eat, coffee he didn't drink. The puppies thrived in their incubator, growing stronger by the hour, while their mother clung to existence by a thread. On December 27th, Sheriff Bradley arrived at the clinic with news. He found James asleep in a chair beside Rex's kennel, his hand through the bars, resting on her paw. "Mitchell," Bradley said softly, "we need to talk." James woke, disoriented. "Is it Caldwell?" "Sit down." They moved to the waiting room. Sarah joined them, coffee in hand, dark circles under her eyes. Bradley laid a folder on the table between them. "We found Vance. He was trying to cross into Canada. Border Patrol stopped him with $53,000 in cash and a laptop full of records." Bradley opened the folder. Records of every dog that went through his facility, every procedure, every experiment, every death. James's hands clenched into fists. "It's worse than we thought." Bradley continued. Biotech wasn't just testing PTSD medications. They were breeding dogs and selling puppies on the black market, military-grade K9s to private security firms, foreign militaries, anyone who'd pay. The pharmaceutical testing was a side business. The real money was in the puppies. "How much?" Sarah asked. "Over $3 million in 5 years. Caldwell's cut was $600,000. James stood abruptly, walked to the window. Outside, the sun was rising over snow-covered mountains. Beautiful, peaceful, a lie. "There's more," Bradley said quietly. "We found evidence that Rex wasn't the only dog forced to breed. 18 females went through the program. Vance kept detailed records. Rex had 2 previous pregnancies. First litter, 6 puppies, all sold. Second litter, 4 puppies. 3 survived, all sold. This was her 3rd pregnancy." "Where are they?" James's voice was barely audible. "Where are Rex's other puppies? Private security companies, 2 in Texas, 1 in Florida, 3 in California, 2 unaccounted for. We're working with the FBI to trace them. But it's complicated to... Some of these sales were international." James turned from the window. "I want them back. That's not... I don't care if it's possible or legal or convenient. Those are Rex's children. They were stolen from her and sold. I want them back." Bradley sighed. "I'll see what we can do. But there's something else you need to know. Something about David Bennett." Sarah went very still. Bradley pulled out another document. David's K-9 partner was a Malinois named Duke. After David died, Duke went through the same program. Caldwell flagged him as aggressive and unfit for civilian work. Duke was sent to biotech in April 20. What happened to him? Sarah's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. According to Vance's records, Duke became violent during testing. Beta technician was euthanized May 21, 1 month after arrival. Sarah's coffee cup hit the floor, shattering. She stood, walked past James, past Bradley, out into the parking lot. James followed her. She was standing in the snow, arms wrapped around herself, shaking with silent sobs. James didn't speak. He just stood beside her, close enough that she knew she wasn't alone. "David loved that dog," Sarah finally said. "Loved him like a brother, and I never knew. I never asked what happened to Duke. I was so focused on my grief that I didn't think about his dog. And while I was grieving, Duke was being tortured and killed. It's not your fault, isn't it? I'm a cop. I could have investigated, could have asked questions, but I was too busy blaming you." James touched her shoulder gently. "You're asking questions now. You're fighting for Rex, for all of them. David would be proud of you." She turned to face him. "I need to show you something." They went to Sarah's truck. From the glove compartment, she pulled out an envelope, worn and creased. "I found this in David's things. It's addressed to you." He wrote it the day before he died. James's hands trembled as he took the envelope. Inside, a letter in David's familiar handwriting. "Brother, if you're reading this, I didn't make it home. First, this isn't your fault. No matter what happened, no matter how it went down, you did everything you could. I know you, James. I know you'll carry this. Don't. You've saved my life a dozen times. If my number came up, that's on fate, not you. Second, take care of Sarah. She's tougher than she looks, but she'll need someone who understands, someone who knew me. Be there for her. Third, take care of Rex. That dog loves you more than anything in this world. She'd die for you. Don't let her sacrifice be wasted. Live for both of us. Live the life I can't. Fourth, remember Kandahar, February 20. You took a bullet meant for me, jumped in front of me without thinking. The doc said 2 inches to the left, and you'd be dead. You gave me 2 more years of life. Brother, whatever happens tomorrow, I got 2 years I wouldn't have had without you. I'm not scared of dying. I'm scared of you surviving and forgetting how to live. Promise me you'll live, James, really live. Find someone to love, have a family, be happy. That's an order. Semper Fi, brother. See you on the other side. David. James read it twice, then a third time. His vision blurred with tears he'd been holding back for 3 years. I didn't know, he whispered. Kandahar, I barely remembered it. It happened so fast. You saved his life, Sarah said. He had 2 more years because of you. 2 years where he called me every Sunday, where he sent birthday cards, where he was my brother. You gave me that. James folded the letter carefully, held it against his chest. I've been carrying his death like a weight, like I failed him. You didn't fail him. You loved him, and he loved you. They stood in the parking lot, snow falling gently around them, and something fundamental shifted. The blame Sarah had carried, the guilt James had shouldered, it didn't disappear. Grief never disappears, but it transformed into something bearable, something shared inside the clinic. Dr. Morgan was waiting for them. She's awake. Rex's eyes were open, cloudy with drugs, but aware. When James approached, her tail moved slightly, just a small wag, but it was everything. "Hey, girl," James said, his voice breaking. "You scared me." Rex tried to lift her head, managed maybe an inch before exhaustion pulled her back down. "The puppies are doing well," De Morgan said. "They're feeding, gaining weight. Hope is still the weakest, but she's fighting." She paused. "There's something you should know. We ran genetic testing on the puppies to verify paternity for the criminal case. The father is a dog named Titan." "Titan," Sarah repeated. "Officer Chen's dog, the one who donated blood, the same." Apparently, Vance had been using Titan's genetic material for years. Titan's bloodline is worth a fortune. Elite military breeding. The irony is that the dog who saved Rex's life is also the father of her puppies. James looked at Rex, who was watching him with those intelligent eyes. So much suffering, so much pain. But she was here. She was alive. And her puppies, the last puppies she would ever have, carried the blood of the dog who'd saved her. "When can she see them?" James asked. "Tomorrow, if she's stable." "But James, you need to prepare yourself. Even if she recovers physically, the psychological trauma from what she's been through." De Morgan stopped. "Dogs are resilient, but she's been through hell. She may never be the same." James stroked Rex's head gently. "None of us are the same as we were, but we're still here, still fighting." That night, Sarah returned to her mother's house to check on Margaret, who'd been staying with a neighbor. James remained at the clinic, sleeping in the chair beside Rex's kennel. At 3 a.m. he woke to find Rex watching him. "Can't sleep either," he whispered. Rex's tail wagged once, weak but deliberate. James moved closer, his hand through the bars of the kennel, resting on her paw. "I read David's letter. He told me to take care of you. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving, not ever again." Rex closed her eyes, but her paw pressed against his hand. Trust, forgiveness, love that had survived years of separation, months of torture, and the edge of death itself. In the nursery, 4 puppies slept in their incubator. Hope, the smallest, nestled against her brothers and sister, fighting, surviving, living, just like her mother had taught her. Rex met her puppies on December 20th. De Morgan carried them one at a time to her kennel, placing them beside their mother while monitoring Rex's vitals carefully. The moment the first puppy touched her, Rex's entire body relaxed. She began to clean him with gentle licks, her maternal instinct overriding the trauma, the pain, the exhaustion. "She is a natural," De Morgan said softly. "Despite everything they did to her, her instinct is still intact." Hope was the last puppy brought to Rex. The tiny female, still struggling to gain weight, nestled against her mother's chest. Rex cleaned her with extra care, as if she understood this one needed more attention. When Hope began to nurse, James felt something inside him crack open, not breaking, but healing. "They're a family," Sarah said, standing beside him. "Yeah," James agreed. "They are." The criminal trials moved quickly. Caldwell pleaded guilty to 47 counts of animal abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. The prosecutor offered a deal 8 years in federal prison in exchange for full cooperation. Caldwell's testimony detailed every transaction, every dog, every dollar. His voice shook as he read the names of the 18 dogs who died during testing. During his sentencing hearing, James did something no one expected. He testified on Caldwell's behalf. "Your Honor," James said, standing at the witness stand, "what Captain Caldwell did was unforgivable. He hurt my dog. He hurt me. He hurt 46 other veterans and their dogs. But his son is 17 years old, nonverbal, autistic, and about to lose his father for 8 years. I know what it's like to lose people you love. I know what desperation looks like. I'm not saying Caldwell shouldn't face consequences, but maybe those consequences can include a chance for redemption." The judge reduced the sentence to 5 years, with the requirement that Caldwell volunteer with a military cane rehabilitation program upon release. Caldwell's son, Marcus, sat in the courtroom holding a drawing he'd made, a picture of a dog, a man, and a boy smiling together. After the hearing, Marcus approached James. The boy said nothing. He rarely spoke, but he handed James the drawing. At the bottom, in careful letters, someone had written, "Thank you for hope." James knelt to Marcus's level. "Your dad made mistakes, just some bad ones. But he loves you. Don't forget that." Marcus nodded, then did something unexpected. He reached out and touched James's prosthetic leg, then his own chest, over his heart. The message was clear. We're both different, both broken in ways people can't see. Vance went to trial and received 15 years. The evidence was overwhelming. His clinic was seized, and in the basement, they found 6 dogs still locked in kennels, malnourished, traumatized, but alive. Webb coordinated their rescue and rehabilitation, personally funding their recovery. By mid-January, Rex was strong enough to leave the clinic. DeMorgan gave strict instructions: no stress, gentle exercise only, careful monitoring of the surgical site. The puppies were thriving at 6 weeks old. Their eyes were open, their personalities emerging. Hope, despite her rough start, was the most vocal, constantly demanding attention, climbing over her siblings, first to explore anything new. "She's her mother's daughter," DeMorgan said with a smile. James used a portion of his VA settlement to buy a small ranch, 40 miles outside Frost Creek. 40 acres of Montana wilderness, a modest house, and enough space for dogs to run free. Sarah helped him move in, bringing boxes from his abandoned farmhouse. At the bottom of one box, they found the photograph, the one with the red X over Rex's face. James stared at it for a long moment, then carefully removed the frame. With a cloth and gentle pressure, he cleaned the X away, revealing Rex's face again, whole, unmarked. "I was so angry," he said quietly, "at myself, at the world. I thought marking her out would make it hurt less. Did it? No. It just made me feel more alone." Sarah took the photo, placed it on the mantel of the new house. Beside it, she put a photo of David in uniform. They should be together. They're both part of this family. The word family settled into James's chest like a homecoming. In February, Sarah's mother, Margaret, came to live at the ranch. Her dementia had progressed to the point where she needed full-time care. But something remarkable happened around the dogs, especially Rex. Margaret's confusion would lift. She'd sit on the porch, Rex at her feet, and talk about David with clarity and love. "He loved dogs," Margaret said one afternoon. "Always wanted one growing up, but his father was allergic. When he joined the military and got Duke, he called me crying with happiness, said he finally had the partner he'd always wanted." "I'm sorry about Duke," James said gently. "I'm sorry we couldn't save him." Margaret patted his hand. "You're saving these ones. David would say that's what matters. Not dwelling on who we lost, but protecting who we still have." By March, the FBI had located 5 of Rex's puppies from her previous litters. 2 were owned by a private security company in Texas. They agreed to return them when they learned the circumstances. 3 others had been sold internationally, 1 to a company in Germany, 2 to a private estate in Dubai. The international cases were complicated, but Webb was working with military contacts to bring them home. "It'll take time," Webb told James over the phone, "maybe years, but we'll get them back." "Rex has time," James said, watching her sleep in the sun with her current litter sprawled across her. "We all have time now." In April, on the anniversary of David's death, James and Sarah took Rex and the puppies to David's grave. The puppies, now 3 months old, tumbled around the headstone with puppy energy. Hope sat quietly beside the grave marker, as if she understood the solemnity of the moment. James placed Rex's old military vest on the grave. Sarah added Rex's dog tags, the ones from Afghanistan. They stood in silence, hands clasped, while Rex sat between them. "I read your letter 100 times. James said to the headstone, 'You told me to live.' I'm trying, brother. Every day, I'm trying." Sarah laid flowers on the grave. "We found Duke's ashes. They were in evidence storage at Biotech. We're going to bury them here, next to you. You should be together." The wind moved through the cemetery, rustling the new spring leaves. For a moment, it sounded almost like a voice, almost like David saying, "Good, you're doing good." In May, Sarah found James sitting on the porch at sunset, and Hope asleep in his lap. The puppy had claimed him as her person, following him everywhere, crying when he left her sight. "She's going to be spoiled," Sarah said, sitting beside him. "She deserves it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the other 3 puppies play in the yard. Rex supervised from her favorite spot under the oak tree, content and watchful. "I have been thinking," Sarah said carefully, "about us, about this." She gestured to the ranch, the dogs, the life they'd built together over 5 months. James's heart kicked into high gear. "Yeah, we're good at this. Taking care of each other, taking care of them. We work. We do. I'm not the same person I was when I pulled you over that day. I was so angry, so focused on blame. You helped me see past that. You saved my life," James said simply. "If you hadn't sent that text message, if you hadn't pulled me over, I'd be dead. You and Rex, you both saved me." Sarah turned to face him. "I'm not good at this, at feelings, at saying what I mean, but I need you to know that I—" She stopped, searching for words. "I know," James said softly. "I feel it too." "What do we do about it?" "We keep doing what we're doing, taking it one day at a time, building something good from something broken." Sarah smiled, And for the first time since David's death, it reached her eyes. I can do that. On June 5th, James proposed, not with a ring or fanfare, but with honesty while they were feeding the dogs their dinner. Hopo had stolen a piece of kibble from her brother, and they were both laughing at the puppy's audacity when James said, "Marry me." Sarah dropped the food scoop. "What? Marry me? Build this life with me? Make this family official?" "James, You don't have to answer now. Think about it. But I need you to know that when I was on that bridge, when I had the gun in my hand, I thought I had nothing left to live for. I was wrong. You were what I had to live for. I just didn't know it yet." As Sarah stepped closer, framed his face with her hands. "Yes, yes, yes, I'll marry you. Because you're right. We're good at this. And I'm tired of being afraid of happiness." They married on June 8th at the ranch. Small ceremony. 50 people, veterans who'd heard about the case and wanted to show support. Webb stood as James's best man. Deputy Stan Warner, fully retired now but still sharp as ever, officiated. Hope and David, the puppy, now 6 months old and already showing signs of his mother's intelligence, carried the rings on ribbons tied to their collars. They performed flawlessly, sitting at attention until given the command to approach. The ceremony included a moment of silence for David Bennett and Duke, for Rex's puppies, who'd been sold and scattered, for the 18 dogs who'd died at biotech, for everyone who'd been lost along the way. Rex sat at James's feet during the vows, her gray muzzle resting on his shoe. She was showing her age now, slower, more careful in her movements. Dr. Morgan said she had maybe 2 years left, maybe 3 if they were lucky. The trauma had taken its toll, but she was content, loved, home. At the reception, Webb pulled James aside. "I have news. The puppy in Germany, they've agreed to return her. She'll be here next month." James felt tears prick his eyes. "Thank you for everything you've done." "It's what should have been done from the start. I'm just correcting my failures." "You're doing more than that. You're giving these dogs their lives back." In September, on a crisp autumn morning, James found Rex lying under the oak tree, the place she'd claimed as her own. She was breathing, but something in her eyes told him it was time. He laid down beside her in the grass, and Sarah joined him. They stayed with her for 3 hours, talking softly, stroking her fur, telling her stories about Afghanistan and David and all the lives she'd saved. "You can rest now," James whispered. "You've fought long enough. You've earned your peace." Rex's eyes found his. For a moment, she looked young again, the eager Powhatan who'd saved his life in the desert. Then she closed her eyes, pressed her head against his chest one last time, and let go. They buried her on the ranch, under the oak tree, with full military honors. Veterans came from 3 states to pay respects. A bugler played taps. The flag that had covered David's casket was folded and placed in Rex's grave. Hope, now 9 months old and showing every sign of becoming as remarkable as her mother, lay on the fresh earth and wouldn't move for tutis on the headstone. They carved Rex, canine hero, loyal friend, eternal guardian. She taught us how to live again. 6 months later, Sarah gave birth to a son. They named him David James Mitchell. Hope appointed herself his guardian. sleeping beside his crib, following him as he learned to crawl, to walk, to run through the fields where her mother used to play. The puppy from Germany arrived a female named Luna, trained in personal protection, who looked exactly like Rex. She integrated into the family seamlessly, as if she'd always been there. 2 years after Rex's death, all 5 of her surviving puppies from previous litters had been located and returned. The ranch became a sanctuary not just for Rex's bloodline, but for other military canines who needed healing, needed homes, needed humans who understood what they'd survived. James started a nonprofit, Rex's Legacy, dedicated to reuniting veterans with their service dogs and rehabilitating canines who'd been abused or abandoned. Sarah ran the day-to-day operations while still working part-time with the police department. Margaret, in her lucid moments, volunteered to socialize the dogs, her gentle presence calming even the most traumatized animals. On the 5-year anniversary of the day Sarah had pulled James over on Highway 89, they stood at Rex's grave. David, the child, now 4 years old, placed flowers on the headstone. Hope, now an adult dog with her own litter of puppies, lay beside the grave. "I used to think," James said quietly, "that surviving meant just not dying, getting through each day without falling apart. I didn't understand that surviving and living are different things." Sarah took his hand, and now I understand what David meant in his letter. Living means loving people even though you might lose them. It means building something bigger than yourself. It means choosing hope even when everything tells you to give up. He looked at the ranch, at the dogs playing in the fields, at his son laughing as a puppy licked his face. "Rex taught me that. She never gave up on me, even when I gave up on myself. She'd be proud of what you've built here." "What we've built," James corrected. "You, me, Webb, Stan, everyone who believed these dogs deserved better. We built this together." As the sun set over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Hope lifted her head and howled a long, mournful sound that other dogs on the ranch joined. It wasn't sadness. It was remembrance, honor, a promise that Rex's sacrifice would never be forgotten. In the house, baby, David started crying, and they went inside together to their family, to their home, to the life they'd built from broken pieces and fierce love. Behind them, the wind moved through the oak tree above Rex's grave, rustling the leaves like a contented sigh. Like a soldier finally at rest, knowing her mission was complete, the fight had been worth it. The pain had led to purpose, and love complicated. Painful, transformative love had been the answer all along. Sometimes the deepest wounds aren't the ones we can see. James Mitchell survived a war, but he almost didn't survive the peace that followed. He'd lost his leg, lost his brother in arms, and believed he'd lost the one soul who'd never stopped looking for him. For 3 years, he existed in the shadows, counting pills instead of blessings, marking time instead of making memories. Then, on a frozen highway, a barking dog changed everything. Rex hadn't forgotten. Through 9 months of torture, through forced breeding, through every indignity and cruelty, she'd held on to the memory of the man who'd promised to find her. That's the truth about loyalty that outlasts suffering, about second chances that arrive when we've stopped believing in them, about families we choose when blood fails us. We all carry invisible scars from battles others can't see. But like James discovered, survival isn't the same as living. And it's never too late to choose hope over surrender. The question isn't whether we've been broken. It's whether we'll let love put us back together. Have you ever had a pet that changed your life during a difficult time? What would you say to someone who feels like giving up today? Share your story in the comments below.